Welcome to Buddhism Heartfelt. In this gentle corner of Dharma sharing, Buddhism Heartfelt invites you to slow down, breathe deeply, and listen to the wisdom of Zen and Buddhist teachings spoken with compassion. Today's journey begins with the topic, "No one comes to us without a predestined fate." Through 10 reflective chapters, we will explore how karmic ties shape the people we meet, why joy and pain both have meaning, and how every encounter, even the briefest, carries a message for our awakening. Let us walk this path together, step by step, heart to heart. Part 1. The Invisible Threads of Karma. Have you ever met someone for the first time and yet felt as if you had known them for ages? Or perhaps someone stepped into your life and altered its course in a way you never expected. These are not coincidences. According to Buddhist wisdom, such encounters arise from the subtle and unseen threads of karma, the accumulated actions, intentions, and conditions that weave the tapestry of our lives. In Buddhism, karma is not fate, but the law of cause and effect. Whatever we think, say, or do leaves an imprint. These imprints are not confined to a single lifetime. Like seeds carried by the wind, they land and sprout when conditions are right, sometimes years later, sometimes lifetimes later. When someone enters our life, it is never out of nowhere. A karmic thread is pulling. That thread may be thick or thin, tangled or smooth. It may come from love, hatred, debt, gratitude, promises kept or broken. But one thing is certain, it is not random. The Zen tradition often speaks in paradoxes. One such koan says, "The meeting of two people is like the meeting of two clouds." What does this mean? Clouds gather moisture over long distances. Their shapes shift constantly, and when they meet, sometimes they bring rain, sometimes only shadows. Likewise, when two lives touch, the result can be joy, sorrow, inspiration, or all three at once. From the Buddhist perspective, every meeting is sacred, not because it's always pleasant, but because it's always meaningful. A stranger on the street may be a being you saved from harm lifetimes ago. A lover who breaks your heart may be paying off a karmic debt, or helping you see your own attachments. A friend who appears just when you're about to give up might have made a vow to help you in this very life. But these threads are subtle. They don't come with explanations. They arrive wrapped in mystery. That's why the practice of mindfulness is essential. When we live mindlessly, we brush off people, miss signs, and mistake blessings for burdens. But when we're awake, we begin to see the web beneath the surface and feel gratitude for even the painful threads. In ancient Buddhist texts, there's a story about a monk named Maudgalyayana, one of the Buddha's closest disciples. He possessed great spiritual powers and once used them to trace the karmic origins of a single stone that had hit his foot on the road. He discovered it was linked to a minor act of harm he had committed eons ago. Even a stone on the road, even a minor wound, nothing is without cause. Likewise, the people who enter our orbit, whether they bring love, conflict, healing, or challenge, are mirrors to something deeper. They are not merely characters in our personal story. They are fellow travelers, bound by similar karmic currents. To see this is to be humbled and to awaken compassion. This teaching, however, is not meant to be used for blame or fatalism. "They hurt me, so it must be karma," is not a justification for passivity. The Buddha taught that while karma sets the conditions, our response creates the path. We can choose to react with anger, or transform the moment with understanding. We can close our hearts or open to the lesson. Sometimes a person comes into our life to help us, but it looks like harm. A strict teacher, a harsh critic, or even a betrayer may be revealing something in us that needs to heal. In Buddhist cosmology, even the wrathful deities are protectors, burning away ignorance with fierce compassion. Likewise, not every karmic thread is warm and soft. Some are sharp, but they cut through illusion. There is also beauty in brief encounters. A nurse who comforts us in a hospital, a passerby who smiles at us on a hard day, a child who says something profound before disappearing into the crowd. These short threads are no less powerful. They may be moments of great spiritual significance. In the Avatamsaka Sutra, it is said that a single encounter can contain 10,000 dharmas. One meeting, infinite ripples. But we must be present to receive the teaching. If our hearts are clouded by judgment, fear, or haste, we miss the depth. Every person you meet is a field of merit, an opportunity to sow or reap. The monk Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "The next Buddha may appear as a group, or she may come in the form of the person sitting next to you on the bus." To live with this awareness is to live with reverence, not for the person, but for the unseen web of causes and conditions that brought you both together. This kind of reverence softens us. We stop trying to control every connection. We stop labeling people so quickly. We begin to listen, really listen, for the Dharma that each one brings. And sometimes that Dharma is silence. Absence. Even those who leave us teach us something profound, the truth of impermanence. We may cling, but they still go. We may grieve, but the thread has served its purpose. The pain of their leaving is a bell, reminding us to cherish the one still here. This is the beginning of understanding fate, not as something we're bound by, but something we're invited to wake up through. Every person who enters your life, for a moment, a season, or a lifetime, is part of your unfolding. Bow to them, learn from them, bless them, and when the thread is cut, let it go with grace. This is the Dharma of connection, the invisible web, the poetry of karma, and this is only the beginning. Part 2. Seeds from past lives bloom today. When we look deeply into a moment of connection, whether joyful or painful, we begin to see that it is not isolated. It carries with it the weight of time, the echoes of other lives, and the gentle murmur of stories we have long forgotten. In Buddhism, this is the truth of reincarnation and karmic continuity, the idea that our present experiences are ripening fruits from seeds planted in lifetimes past. Imagine you are walking through a garden. Some flowers are blooming, others are only buds, still others are already wilting. Yet each one comes from a seed, invisible in the beginning, that held within it all the potential of the flower's color, fragrance, and form. So it is with people. So it is with relationships. What appears today as a sudden meeting is, in fact, the blossoming of a seed we once placed in the soil of time. In the Jataka tales, stories of the Buddha's previous lives, we are reminded over and over that beings who meet in this life have often met before. A deer who saves a drowning man turns out to be a previous incarnation of the Bodhisattva. A cruel king who later repents was once a friend in another birth. These stories are not just fables. They are illustrations of a deeper truth. Nothing is ever lost. Not an act of kindness, not a betrayal, not even a glance. When we meet someone who stirs something in us, an instant trust, a deep aversion, or an unexplainable familiarity, it may be because we are meeting them again. Maybe you once helped them in a time of crisis. Maybe they once harmed you. Maybe a promise was made or a vow taken, and now it returns like a soft echo across lifetimes. But we do not remember, at least not with the conscious mind. This is why these meetings feel like déjà vu or destiny. The heart remembers what the mind cannot recall. It's like hearing a melody that stirs emotion without knowing the lyrics. Karma plays in subtle harmonics. This understanding softens our view of life. It removes the illusion that we are at the center of random events. It helps us bow to the mystery, to trust that even the confusing or painful relationships are not without meaning. The lover who betrays us may be repaying a past debt. The child who clings to us with deep affection may have been our parent before. The stranger who shows us unexpected kindness may be fulfilling a vow made under the Bodhi tree of another age. In the Sutra of 42 sections, the Buddha says, "When those whom we love leave us, do not grieve. All beings have met before, and all meetings must part." This teaching reminds us of two things: the sacredness of connection and the impermanence of it. We must cherish while it lasts and let go when it ends. The blooming of karmic seeds does not always lead to pleasure. Sometimes it leads to friction. An employee who tests your patience daily, a neighbor who seems to dislike you without reason, or a sibling with whom harmony is difficult. These too may be old seeds opening. Perhaps they reflect debts unpaid or patterns unresolved. The Buddhist path is not to avoid these people, but to bring mindfulness and compassion to the situation, knowing that something is being completed, and we have the chance to close the cycle with wisdom rather than reactivity. This is where our present choices become powerful. The past brought us together, but the future is shaped by how we respond now. If we meet anger with anger, the cycle deepens. If we meet it with understanding, we begin to untangle the knot. In this way, we are not victims of karma. We are artists working with it like clay, shaping it into something new. The Buddha often taught in terms of dependent origination. When this is, that is. When this ceases, that ceases. Our relationships follow the same law. They arise because certain conditions are present. They last as long as those conditions are maintained. They end when the conditions dissolve. This is not cold or heartless, it is liberating. It frees us from clinging. It helps us meet each person without trying to possess or hold. One of the most healing realizations on the Buddhist path is this: even brief, incomplete, or painful relationships can be complete in their purpose. A person does not need to stay in your life forever to fulfill the karma they carry with you. They may appear for one season, one lesson, one silent gesture, and that may be enough. Trying to extend it beyond what the thread allows only causes suffering. This perspective also helps us approach grief with more tenderness. When someone we love dies, we grieve not only their absence, but the sudden cut in the karmic thread. Yet Buddhism teaches that this is not truly the end. The thread continues, perhaps in other forms, perhaps in other lifetimes. The energy of the bond, if filled with compassion, ripples forward into new shapes. Think of a candle lighting another candle. The first flame diminishes, but the light continues. So it is with karmic relationships. They pass from form to form, life to life, offering light even as the form changes. So how do we live in the presence of this truth? With reverence, with attention, with humility. When someone enters your life, don't rush to label the connection. Don't grasp or push away. Instead, ask, what is being revealed here? What is ready to be healed, completed, or understood? Let your heart remain soft. Let your judgments dissolve. Let each relationship, no matter how small, be a gateway to insight. You may not remember the seed, but you can honor the flower. This is the path of seeing with karmic eyes, of bowing to the mystery while living it with compassion. We do not walk through life alone. We walk through the echoes of countless lives, meeting old friends, former adversaries, ancient promises, all coming to bloom, all passing again. Let your presence now be a seed of peace, so that in lives to come, those who meet you will also feel the warmth of unseen threads, and know in their hearts, this is not the first time. Part 3. Affinity and Aversion, Two Sides of Connection. Not all connections feel like love. Some feel like friction. Others like misunderstanding, rejection, or even quiet repulsion. And yet, from the perspective of karma and Buddhist insight, these encounters are just as meaningful, sometimes even more so, than the ones that comfort and please us. Karmic relationships do not only arrive in the form of soulmates, kind friends, or helpful guides. They also come wearing masks of challenge. That colleague who constantly irritates you, the family member whose presence tightens your chest, the stranger whose words cut deeper than expected. These are not errors in the grand design. These are mirrors, placed before us by the workings of karma to help us see what lies beneath the surface of the self. In Buddhism, there is no dualism between good and bad people in the way we often perceive. What we call love or hatred, affinity or aversion, are both conditions arising from past contact, from past actions, words, intentions, or unresolved experiences. The law of affinity, in karmic terms, suggests that when we feel a strong connection with someone, it's not necessarily because they are meant to stay with us forever, but because there's unfinished karma between us. Sometimes that karma is pleasant, a love fulfilled, a kindness returned. But sometimes it is painful, a debt to be paid, a wound to be healed, or a conflict needing to be burned clean through awareness. Think of two magnets. Sometimes they pull, sometimes they repel. But both are part of the same energetic relationship. Likewise, people who draw strong emotions from us, positive or negative, are often entangled with us through karmic threads that may span lifetimes. Zen Master Dogen once said, "Those who anger us most are our greatest teachers." Why? Because they expose what still clings in us. Our ego, our impatience, our judgments, our unresolved wounds. If we never met these difficult people, our illusions would remain intact. Like fire purifies gold, difficult relationships can purify the heart, but only if we face them mindfully, with the intent not to escape, but to understand. From the lens of karmic insight, anger is not a reaction. It is a pointer. It says, look deeper. Something is unfinished here. And this is the secret. You may not be resolving only this life story. You may be dissolving centuries of pain carried forward unconsciously. There is a story in the Buddhist tradition of a lay practitioner who once prayed to meet only kind and loving people on his spiritual path.
The Buddha smiled gently and said, "Then you will never grow. For the seed of true compassion does not blossom only in pleasant fields. It flowers in adversity, in misunderstanding, in learning to see past the veil of personality into the suffering that lives behind someone's words or actions." Aversion, too, is a teacher. It reveals where we still grasp at comfort, at safety, at the known. When we resist someone, it may be because they stir something hidden in us. Perhaps we fear their freedom, their chaos, their difference. Or perhaps their presence calls forth our own unresolved guilt or shame. To look with wisdom is to see this aversion is not about them. It is a call from within. Karma's gift is this: it brings into our lives exactly the right people to push the buttons we didn't know we had, not out of cruelty, but out of deep compassion. Because until we see these hidden places, we cannot be free. In this way, even enemies are part of our awakening. The Buddha himself, before attaining enlightenment, had to face his inner Mara, the force of delusion and temptation. Mara appeared as fear, desire, and self-doubt. And yet, instead of fighting him, the Buddha touched the earth and calmly said, "I see you." That is the power of mindfulness in the face of karmic difficulty. Not to deny, not to suppress, but to meet it with presence and compassion.
You may wonder, does this mean we must tolerate harm or stay in toxic situations? No, Buddhism never teaches passivity in the face of suffering. What it teaches is awareness with discernment. You can walk away from someone with compassion. You can set boundaries without hatred. You can protect yourself while still seeing the karmic thread that brought this person to you, not as a curse, but as a messenger. In this way, even broken connections have purpose. That friend who disappeared, the partner who betrayed you, the teacher who disappointed, each one arrived to play a part in your inner unfolding. They may never return. They may never say sorry. But their presence gave you the chance to look deeper, to let go, to evolve. And that is a gift beyond measure. Another aspect of karmic aversion is projection. Sometimes we dislike someone not because of who they are, but because they mirror back a part of ourselves we have rejected. The more we judge them, the more we may be pushing away what we need to heal within. Buddhist practice invites us to take these moments as opportunities for shadow work, to meet the parts of ourselves we hide with the same compassion we offer to others. When we stop labeling people as good or bad and start seeing them as karmic reflections, our relationships transform. The enemy becomes a mirror. The rival becomes a mirror. Even the one who betrayed us becomes a mirror. And what they show us is not their fault, it is our opportunity. In this light, affinity and aversion are no longer opposites. They are partners in awakening. The one who comforts you is a balm. The one who wounds you is a fire. Both are sacred. Both belong. So the next time someone walks into your life and stirs emotion, love or anger, admiration or judgment, pause, bow inwardly. Ask, what is this person showing me about myself? What pattern, what wound, what truth is surfacing here? Do not rush to keep or push away. Just observe, feel, reflect. You are being invited. You are being shown. Not everyone who brings warmth is your destiny, and not everyone who brings pain is your enemy. In the Buddhist way of seeing, every person is a vehicle for practice. Every encounter is a Dharma gate. Some gates open with ease,
Others require effort and courage, but all lead inward, toward the heart of compassion.
Part 4. The Role of Suffering in Destined Meetings. In the tender silence of the Dharma, we often hear about compassion, wisdom, and peace. But these flowers do not grow without the soil of suffering. In fact, it is often through pain, especially the pain brought to us by other people, that the deepest karmic threads reveal themselves and the greatest opportunities for awakening appear. Suffering in relationships is not a detour from the path. It is the path. A Zen teaching says, the obstacle is the path. And in the realm of karmic destiny, those who bring us the most discomfort may be the very beings we once made the deepest promises to, the ones who return not to hurt us, but to help us see. This is not an easy truth to accept. When someone wounds us, our first instinct is to label them enemy, abuser, mistake. But Buddhism invites us to look differently. What if the person who hurt you most was also the one who, in another life, loved you most? What if they came not to destroy you, but to help you burn away the part of yourself that no longer serves your freedom? In the Lotus Sutra, we are told of countless bodhisattvas, beings of great compassion, who make vows to return in lifetimes of suffering, so that others may awaken. These beings do not always appear as saints or friends. Sometimes they come cloaked in conflict, in rejection, even in betrayal. Their appearance in our lives shakes the illusion, challenges the ego, and forces us to confront what we have ignored. This does not justify cruelty or excuse harm. Instead, it deepens our understanding. Suffering has a karmic context. And within that context, we can choose either to respond with resentment or to use the moment as fuel for transformation. There's an old Zen parable of a man struck by an arrow. Instead of tending to the wound, he becomes obsessed with questions. Who shot me? Why? What kind of bow? The Buddha reminds us, first remove the arrow. Likewise, when someone brings pain into our lives, our task is not to obsess over the why, but to meet the suffering directly, with mindfulness, compassion, and a willingness to look inward. What makes a meeting destined is not how long it lasts, nor how good it feels. It's the impact it has on the soul. Sometimes the person who wounds us the most also opens the door to our greatest spiritual growth. They strip away illusion. They press on the bruise we refuse to see. They leave us raw, and in that rawness we finally turn inward and ask, what in me is still attached? What in me needs to heal? Suffering is a revealer. It shows us our unconscious beliefs, our unmet needs, our unresolved karma. The person who cheats, the friend who betrays, the parent who abandons. Each one becomes a mirror, reflecting the places we still seek wholeness outside of ourselves. Their actions may be wrong, but the invitation is still sacred. Come back to yourself. There's a story of a monk who was beaten and robbed during his travels. When asked later how he felt about his attackers, he simply bowed and said, "They are my teachers. They helped me see where fear still lived." This is not weakness. This is profound strength, the strength to see even harm as a teacher, without falling into hatred or victimhood. Of course, this does not mean we should remain in harm's way. Buddhism always upholds wise action. Protecting oneself, setting boundaries, leaving unhealthy environments, these are also acts of compassion. But even as we walk away, we can carry a heart that sees this too had purpose. This meeting was not in vain. Many people come to Buddhist practice because of heartbreak, the loss of a loved one, the betrayal of a partner, the pain of abandonment. And what they often find is that the wound becomes the gate. Through suffering, they discover a deeper self, a stillness beneath the storm. They realize that the person who caused the pain also opened the Dharma door. Think of the lotus flower. It blooms in muddy water. Without the muck, there is no blossom. Likewise, without pain, there may be no awakening. The people who stir our deepest suffering are often the ones who shake us free from our spiritual sleep. The Buddha himself did not awaken in comfort. His journey began when he saw suffering, old age, sickness, and death. And throughout his path, he was challenged by betrayal, by loss, by his own doubts. But he did not turn away. He looked directly into suffering, and in doing so, discovered the end of it. So what do we do when a destined meeting brings pain? First, we breathe. Then we feel. Not suppressing, not dramatizing, just allowing the emotion to rise and pass like waves on the ocean. Next, we look deeper. What is this person teaching me about attachment, about fear, about how I still seek validation or security? And finally, we bow, not to the pain, but to the lesson, not to the person, but to the karmic thread that brought them. For even if they did harm, they were the messenger, and messages come wrapped in all forms. This bowing is not weakness. It is the ultimate act of liberation. It says, I no longer need to hold anger. I no longer need to carry the story. I release both you and myself from this thread. May we both be free. Some karmic connections come into our lives only to be dissolved. That is their purpose. The suffering they bring is the thread completing itself. When we resist that completion, we suffer more. But when we allow the pain to teach and then let the person go, we rise lighter, clearer, more whole. This is the alchemy of suffering in karmic relationships. What burns us also illuminates us. What hurts us also humbles us. And what wounds us, when embraced with mindfulness, becomes the very thing that wakes us up. So the next time someone breaks your heart or tests your patience to its limit, remember, this too is a thread. This too was destined. And within the pain lies a teaching, perhaps the one you've been waiting for your whole life. Bow gently, listen deeply, and let the Dharma speak. Part 5. Teachers in Disguise. Why they appear. There are people who walk into our lives like soft sunlight. Their presence comforts us. Their words nourish us. But there are others whose arrival feels like a storm, unsettling, unpredictable, even painful. And yet, in the quiet gaze of Buddhist insight, both are teachers. Some arrive with open hands, others come with hidden lessons, but none appear by mistake. In Zen and Mahayana Buddhism, there's a profound understanding that everyone we encounter is a reflection, a messenger, a mirror. Some mirrors affirm us, others reveal the parts we've hidden. But both are necessary, both are gifts, and both, knowingly or not, play the role of spiritual teachers in our karmic journey. We often expect spiritual teachings to come from a monk in robes, a wise book, or a quiet retreat. But the Dharma wears many costumes. It may arrive in the form of a demanding boss, a child's unexpected question, or even someone who causes us deep pain. They may not be aware of their role. They may not be spiritual at all. But karma places them on our path, sometimes with a gentle nudge, sometimes with a sharp push,
always with meaning. The Diamond Sutra teaches that a bodhisattva does not abide in appearances. In other words, wisdom does not always look holy. Compassion does not always feel kind. Sometimes the most powerful lessons are delivered through challenge, discomfort, and surprise. These disguised teachers may not speak the Dharma, but they live it through how they affect our hearts, stir our shadows, and call us inward. Consider this. The person who rejects you may be teaching you self-worth. The one who controls you may be offering you a chance to reclaim your freedom. The one who ignores you may be showing you the places where you still crave validation. In this way, karma sends you not who you want, but who you need. There's a Zen saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. But that teacher may not carry mala beads or quote the Buddha. They may arrive as a lover who leaves, a stranger who criticizes, a sibling who competes, and still they teach. They trigger the unresolved. They surface the forgotten. They point to where the work must be done. But why do these teachers come disguised? Because the ego resists obvious instruction. When a lesson is wrapped in discomfort, we must look deeper. We must pause, feel, question. That process is the lesson. It slows us down. It pierces our surface stories. It humbles us. There's a story in Buddhist folklore about a sage who prayed for wisdom. Instead of visions or angels, he was sent a stubborn servant who disobeyed every instruction. The sage grew angry and disappointed until he realized that the servant was showing him his impatience, his pride, and his need for control. That servant, though untrained in the Dharma, had become his greatest teacher. So often, we are waiting for people to behave better, to speak kinder, to understand us more. But what if, in their very failure to meet our expectations, they are revealing the exact part of us that needs healing? This is the compassionate trick of karma. It does not flatter. It does not comfort the ego. It exposes. And in that exposure, it gives us a chance to choose a new way, to break the old pattern, to soften, to forgive, to wake up. But we must be willing to see, to look past the mask, to ask, what is this moment really teaching me? What fear, what attachment, what belief is being touched here? Is this pain pointing me to an old wound I've ignored? Is this tension showing me where I still seek control? Even joyful connections carry teachings. The one who makes you laugh freely may be reminding you to relax. The one who listens without judgment may be teaching you the power of presence. But often we overlook these lessons because we're only focused on emotion, not insight. To live the Dharma is to live as a student, to see every meeting as a classroom, every interaction as a blackboard where karma writes in invisible ink. Our task is not to judge the teacher, but to receive the lesson, humbly, openly, with gratitude. This perspective transforms our life. We stop labeling people as good or bad, helpful or useless. We begin to see that even the briefest encounter may carry a message. A clerk at a store who delays us may save us from an accident. A lost friend may teach us impermanence. A person we cannot stand may show us how to expand our compassion. It also teaches us not to waste time. If every person is a teacher, then every moment is sacred. Instead of holding grudges, we ask, what did this teach me? Instead of clinging to praise, we ask, what in me still needs approval? Every smile, every silence, every sharp word, all become part of the path. In the Mahayana tradition, there is an ideal, the Bodhisattva, the awakened being who chooses to return to the world again and again to help others awaken. It is said that bodhisattvas may appear in any form. As friends, yes, but also as beggars, strangers, even adversaries. The point is not the form. The point is the message they carry. What if the person you're angry at was once your spiritual ally, who agreed long ago to challenge you in this lifetime so you could grow? What if the conflict you're facing is not a curse, but a blessing in disguise, a final test before release? This is not to glorify pain or justify injustice. It is to awaken the deeper seeing, the kind of seeing that allows you to walk through life with open eyes and a heart full of curiosity rather than blame. We do not always understand the roles others play, but we can bow to them silently in our hearts. We can whisper, "Thank you for being my teacher," even if neither of us knew it. And in doing so, we grow lighter, freer, wiser. The next time someone tests your patience, stirs your wounds, or surprises your heart, pause, look again. You may be looking into the eyes of a teacher. Not a perfect one, but a destined one.
Part 6. Letting go of clinging to people. In the great river of life, people come and go, like boats drifting past the shore. Some pause for a while, others sail swiftly by, and a few, just a few, seem to anchor themselves in our hearts. We want them to stay. We feel lost when they leave. But in the teachings of the Buddha, clinging is the root of suffering, even in love, especially in love. The more tightly we hold, the more we fear loss. The more we attach our happiness to another, the more fragile that happiness becomes. And so, Buddhism does not teach us to stop loving. It teaches us to love without clinging. There is a tenderness in this teaching. It does not demand coldness or detachment. On the contrary, it invites us to love with open hands instead of clenched fists, to love in full presence, knowing that what comes must also go. This is the essence of impermanence, anicca, one of the 3 marks of existence in Buddhism. People who enter our lives, especially those with strong karmic ties, often stir up the deepest attachments. We may believe they are the one. We may fear that life without them will be meaningless. But the Dharma reminds us, no person is the source of your wholeness. They are a mirror, a companion, a teacher, not your completion. There is a story from the Pali Canon about a mother who lost her only child. She was devastated and begged the Buddha to bring the child back to life. The Buddha, with great compassion, told her to bring him a single mustard seed from a household that had never known death. She searched the entire village, but found no such house. Every home had its own grief. And in this realization, she saw the truth. Loss is not personal, it is universal. This story teaches us that attachment is not love. Love allows, attachment clings. Love sees the other as they are. Attachment sees only what we need. And when we confuse the two,
we suffer. Not because people leave us, but because we believed they never would. To let go does not mean to forget. It means to release the illusion of permanence. It means to honor what was, even as we allow what is. It means to stop trying to preserve moments and instead show up for them fully while they are here. In Zen, there's a practice called no abode, the art of not settling in any fixed identity, story, or relationship. It doesn't mean becoming a wanderer without roots. It means living in such a way that your heart remains free, even as it loves deeply, like a lotus growing in the mud, rooted but untouched. So, how do we practice this non-clinging love? First, we become aware of our expectations. When we expect someone to fulfill our emotional needs, validate our worth, or always be there, we place a heavy burden on them. No one can carry that weight. When they fall short, as they will, we blame them, or ourselves, or fate. But it's not their fault. It's the expectation that caused the pain. Second, we turn inward. We ask, what am I afraid of losing? What do I believe I lack without this person? Often, we find that beneath the clinging is a wound, a feeling of not being enough, of not being safe alone. Buddhism teaches that all healing begins with self-knowing. As we tend to our own inner life, we become less dependent on others for emotional survival.
Third, we embrace impermanence as a friend, not a threat. When we see that everything is passing, youth, health, relationships, we stop trying to hold life still. Instead, we learn to ride its changing tides with grace. The moments become more precious, not because they last, but because they don't. Thich Nhat Hanh once wrote, "You must love in such a way that the person you love feels free." This is the heart of non-clinging. It is not indifferent. It is not detached in the cold sense. It is radically compassionate, a love that sees the other not as a possession, but as a fellow traveler moving along their own karmic path. Some karmic relationships are meant to end. That ending is not a failure. It is a completion. Like a bell that has been rung, its sound lingers for a time, then fades into silence. We can grieve, we can remember, but we do not need to grasp. The love remains, even if the form does not. In Buddhist practice, letting go is not a one-time act. It is a daily discipline. We may have to release the same person, the same memory, the same fantasy, again and again. But with each letting go, our heart becomes more spacious, less tangled, more at peace. And this peace is not the absence of connection. It is the fullness of presence. It is the ability to say, "You are here now. I welcome you. And when you go, I will bless your path." Some people fear that if they let go, they will never love again. But the truth is, the more we release clinging, the more freely love can flow. Not tied to need, not burdened by fear, but arising naturally, like a mountain spring, cool, pure, and endless. To let go is to trust. Trust that what is meant to stay will stay. What is meant to go will go. And in both, the Dharma is alive. So when someone walks away, or grows distant, or fades from your life, bow. Bow to the shared journey. Bow to the karma completed. Bow to the teaching they brought, even if it hurt. And then, with a soft heart and clear eyes, take a step forward. You are not alone. The Dharma walks with you. And in every letting go, there is a deeper holding, not of the other,
but of your own awakening.
Part 7. From Personal to Universal. Everyone is a reflection. As we journey deeper into the Dharma, a quiet shift begins to occur. We start to see that our personal story is not as separate as we once believed. The people we love, the ones who challenge us, even the strangers who brush past us, they are not just individuals with their own destinies. They are reflections of our inner world, mirrors placed in our path by karma to awaken the parts of ourselves we have not yet fully seen. This is one of the most profound recognitions on the spiritual path. There is no other. In the teachings of interbeing, as offered by Thich Nhat Hanh, we are reminded that everything is interconnected. The cloud becomes the rain becomes the tea becomes your breath, your thoughts, your life. Nothing exists independently, and neither do we. Our relationships are not collisions of separate egos. They are the play of causes and conditions, and ultimately, they are encounters with ourselves. The person who irritates you? A reflection of your impatience. The one who inspires you? A mirror of your highest potential. The one you judge? A version of a self you've exiled. The one you love? A resonance of a truth you're beginning to remember. When you begin to see this, not as a concept but as an experience, the world transforms. People are no longer threats or saviors or sources of validation. They are Dharma gates. Each one opens into you. In traditional Buddhist psychology, the concept of alaya vijnana, the storehouse consciousness, holds all impressions, habits, and karmic seeds. When we meet someone, what arises in us is not solely about them, but about the seeds that are already present within us. They water what is dormant. They awaken what is hidden. In this way, we are constantly being introduced to ourselves through the faces and actions of others. This understanding is not meant to produce guilt or self-blame. Instead, it gives us profound power. No longer are we helpless victims of external people. We are students, and life is the teacher wearing many faces. Imagine sitting in a hall of mirrors. Every direction you look, you see something of yourself, magnified, distorted, softened, raw. That is what relationships are. They show you where you are clear and where you are clouded, where you still grasp and where you've begun to let go. The Zen master Shunryu Suzuki said, "Each of you is perfect the way you are, and you can use a little improvement." It is the same with those we meet, each one perfect in their unfolding, and each one offering us a chance to grow, not by changing them, but by seeing them as ourselves. This is especially true in conflict. When someone triggers a strong reaction in us, we often externalize it. They made me feel this way. But the deeper practice is to ask, what is being stirred in me? Why does this hurt? What part of myself am I seeing in them that I have not yet loved? Sometimes we see in others what we fear in ourselves. A person's anger reflects our own suppressed rage. Their arrogance touches our secret insecurity. Their vulnerability exposes our discomfort with weakness. And yet, all of this is sacred. It is showing us the work that remains. This shift from personal to universal is a liberation. We are no longer caught in the drama of me versus you. We begin to witness the dance of karma, the unfolding of mind, the play of energy. And with this witnessing comes compassion. We soften. We no longer need others to be different in order for us to feel whole. One of the most beautiful practices in Mahayana Buddhism is the practice of exchanging self and other. In meditation, you imagine taking in the suffering of another and offering them your peace. But at a deeper level, you realize there is no true boundary. Their suffering is your suffering. Their awakening is your awakening. The one you hate is the one you could become, given different causes and conditions. The one you envy may one day envy you. This doesn't mean boundaries are not needed. They are. But boundaries made from love and wisdom are very different than walls built from fear. When we see others as reflections, we can say no with kindness. We can walk away without blame. We can protect ourselves without closing our hearts. In the Vimalakirti Sutra, the great lay bodhisattva teaches that the sickness of others is not separate from our own. When we see someone acting from delusion, rather than judging, we ask, what part of the collective pain are they carrying? How can I respond from clarity, not reaction? This is the true expansion of the heart, moving from personal experience to universal compassion. We begin to live not from the small self, but from the bodhisattva heart, the part of us that sees all beings as fellow travelers, all encounters as sacred, all wounds as shared. So the next time you find yourself caught in a reaction, anger, desire, jealousy, blame, pause, take a breath, ask, what in me is being shown here? What is this person mirroring? What part of me is ready to be seen, held, healed? And then bow. Bow to the mirror. Bow to the teacher. Bow to the part of yourself that had the courage to show up in this reflection. This is the work, not to change others, but to see them, and in seeing, to see ourselves more clearly. Not to escape suffering, but to let it become wisdom. Not to find perfect people, but to meet each person as a doorway to the Dharma. And in doing so, you walk with eyes wide open, heart unarmored, and a deep knowing. I am never separate. I am always being shown. Every meeting is a meeting with myself. Part 8. The Dance of Cause and Effect. Everything we experience, every joy, every sorrow, every person we meet, arises from causes and conditions. This is not poetic metaphor. It is the central engine of the Buddha's teaching, pratitya samutpada, or dependent origination. Nothing exists independently. Nothing arises without reason. And in this vast web of interconnection, the people in our lives are not accidents. They are the ripened fruits of seeds planted long ago. Some we remember, most we do not. The Buddha described this chain of cause and effect with clarity. Ignorance leads to action. Action leads to habit. Habit leads to consciousness. Consciousness leads to formation, and so on, a 12-link cycle that spins the wheel of samsara. Within this wheel, relationships are karmic echoes, the reverberation of choices, vows, and actions from past lives, now taking form through human faces and voices. Understanding this doesn't mean we become passive. On the contrary, it empowers us. It means that what we choose now becomes the karma of tomorrow. We are not prisoners of our past. We are participants in its unfolding.
Every kind word plants a seed. Every harsh judgment, every act of generosity, every moment of neglect, they are causes, and the universe does not forget. The effect may not arrive today, but it will ripen. When the conditions are right, the sprout will push through the soil. This is why in Buddhist practice, awareness of intention is everything. Two people can perform the same outward action, giving for instance, but the karmic result will differ depending on the inner motivation. A gift given out of guilt creates different karma than one given with joy and equanimity. When we see life through this lens, we begin to trace the threads backward, not to blame, but to understand. Why did this person arrive at this time, with this effect on my life? What might I have sown to receive such a harvest? What lesson is now ready to be reaped? This inquiry leads us not into guilt, but into responsibility. There is a vast difference between blaming ourselves and taking responsibility. Blame contracts. Responsibility opens. It says, I see the pattern. I bow to the cause, and now I choose a wiser path forward. In relationships, this becomes especially powerful. A person who repeatedly hurts you may be reflecting a karmic cycle you are perpetuating, perhaps by staying silent, or reacting with aggression, or trying to change them. When we understand cause and effect, we stop expecting people to behave differently just because we want them to. Instead, we change the cause within us. This is the practice of karmic transformation, not magical thinking, not trying to manifest perfect relationships, but cultivating the inner conditions, compassion, honesty, patience, that create healthier karmic ripening in the future. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha says, all that we are is the result of what we have thought. The mind is everything. What we think, we become. This includes how we relate to others. Our thoughts of envy, fear, kindness, or desire shape the energy we carry into every interaction. And that energy shapes our relationships, attracting, repelling, or transforming the karmic dance between beings.
There is no karmic calculator, no formula to predict precisely how and when seeds will ripen. But one thing is certain: no seed is lost, and no action, however small, is without consequence. This is both humbling and liberating. It humbles us to realize that our present life is not solely of our own making, but the product of countless interdependent causes. And it liberates us to know that from this moment forward, we can choose different seeds. We often look at the world and think, why did this happen to me? But the Dharma invites a different question. What do I now wish to cultivate? If I want peace, I must plant understanding. If I want love, I must sow patience. If I want freedom, I must water the seeds of non-attachment. This applies not only to major events, but to the tiniest interactions. How we greet someone, how we respond to rudeness, how we speak to those who cannot repay us. Each moment is a karmic field, each word a seed, and the harvest will come, maybe not today, maybe not in this lifetime, but always when conditions align. There is great beauty in this. It means that our lives are not accidents. They are expressions of spiritual law. And within that law, every relationship is meaningful. Some come to bless, some come to challenge, but none are without cause, and none are without potential for transformation. This insight also helps us meet others with compassion.
When someone acts out of cruelty or ignorance, we can ask, what pain are they carrying? What karmic pattern are they trapped in? Instead of reacting with judgment, we respond with understanding, not to excuse their actions, but to see them clearly, without illusion. In this way, cause and effect becomes not just a cosmic truth, but a guide for how to live. We become gardeners of our destiny, careful, attentive, willing to do the slow work of weeding, watering, and waiting. So if someone has brought suffering into your life, do not rush to label it bad karma or punishment. Instead, pause, breathe, ask, what is being completed here? What seed is bearing fruit? And what new seed can I now plant with wisdom? This is how we shift from karmic victims to karmic artists. We do not control the weather, but we can learn to plant well. And in this sacred dance of cause and effect, every person becomes a partner, a reflection of past choices, and an invitation to choose again. You are not bound by your past. You are not doomed to repeat what was. You are a conscious part of karma unfolding. So step gently, speak kindly, and let each action be a prayer, a seed planted in the field of awakening.
Part 9. Meeting others as a practice of compassion. The world is full of faces, some kind, some cruel, some familiar, some fleeting. And as we move through the ever-shifting landscape of human connection, Buddhism gently invites us to shift our question from "what can I get from this person?" to "how can I meet this person with compassion?" This shift from self-centeredness to open-heartedness is where karma transforms and where the ordinary becomes sacred. Each encounter, no matter how small, becomes an opportunity to deepen our compassion, a chance to see beyond someone's actions to the suffering that lies beneath, a moment to practice being a bodhisattva in daily life, not on a mountaintop, not in retreat, but in traffic, at the market, with family, with strangers. To meet others with compassion does not mean becoming passive or naive. It means to see clearly and respond wisely. It means holding the truth of someone's behavior without denying it, and still choosing to respond in a way that does not perpetuate harm, hatred, or ignorance. The Buddha taught, "Hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal law." This law is not a sentiment. It is not about liking everyone. It is about understanding the cause behind behavior and responding in a way that breaks the cycle. When someone is angry, we see their suffering. When someone is harsh, we see their fear. When someone is selfish, we see their hunger for love. And in seeing, we respond not from reactivity, but from presence. To reach this level of compassion is not easy. It requires inner work. It requires healing our own wounds so we don't project them onto others. But each step in that direction frees us and frees those around us. There's a Zen story of a monk who was insulted by a villager. The monk simply smiled and asked, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The villager was confused. The monk bowed and continued his way. This is the power of compassion, not to be unmoved, but to be so rooted in awareness that you no longer absorb the poison of others. This doesn't mean becoming a doormat. Compassion can say no. Compassion can walk away, but it does so without hatred, without adding more fire to the fire.
When we understand that everyone we meet is carrying their own karma, their own pain, their own stories, we soften. We stop taking things personally. We become curious instead of judgmental. And curiosity opens the door to love. There's a story from the Buddhist time about a monk who became deeply angry with a fellow monk. The Buddha asked him, "When someone sets down a burning coal to throw at another, who is burned first?" The monk bowed his head. Anger always burns the one who holds it. Compassion, on the other hand, cools the fire, within and without. In our modern world, where people so often act out of stress, fear, trauma, and confusion, meeting others with compassion becomes a radical act. It becomes the Dharma in motion. It becomes a silent prayer whispered with every interaction. May you be free from suffering. But how do we practice this in daily life? Pause before reacting. When someone's words or actions stir emotion, breathe. Return to the body. Ask, what am I feeling? What might they be feeling?
Listen deeply, not just to the words, but to the energy behind them. Is there pain? Is there fear? Is there longing? See their humanity. Beneath the armor, every person was once a child. Every person has cried. Every person wants to be safe. Respond wisely, sometimes with words, sometimes with silence, sometimes with boundaries, but always with the intention not to harm. Wish them well, even if you part ways, even if they cannot hear you. In your heart, whisper, "May you find peace." When we begin to live like this, our presence changes. People feel it. Even without speaking, we radiate a kind of safety, a gentleness. And this is not weakness, it is strength born from deep seeing. Compassion also requires boundaries. We do not help others by enabling their delusions. Sometimes the most compassionate thing is to say no, to walk away, to speak a difficult truth. But if done with awareness, even these acts become medicine. In Mahayana Buddhism, the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara embodies infinite compassion. She hears the cries of the world and responds in countless forms, as a teacher, a friend, a stranger. In this way, we too can become small bodhisattvas, responding not from our wounds, but from our wisdom. And sometimes, meeting someone with compassion means seeing their karmic role in our life. Perhaps they hurt us because they too are trapped in a cycle. Perhaps our paths crossed so we could learn to forgive, not for them, but for our own freedom. There is great power in being the one who does not pass on the pain, the one who chooses love instead of vengeance, the one who ends the cycle here. This does not mean pretending things are okay. It means seeing clearly and still choosing to act from the heart. In each person we meet, the question becomes, can I see the Dharma here? Can I love, even when it's hard? Can I bow to this soul, even in its confusion? If you can even try, just try, then you are already practicing the path. So as you walk through your day, through markets, offices, homes, streets, remember, every being is fighting an invisible battle. Every being is you in another form. Meet them as a bodhisattva would. Meet them as the Buddha would. With eyes open, heart steady, and a quiet wish. May we all be free.
Part 10. Transforming Fate into Awakening. In the end, everything we've encountered, every smile, every wound, every fleeting presence and long-lasting bond has not simply been part of life's randomness. Each one has been a karmic whisper, inviting us towards something greater than comfort or understanding, toward awakening. When we say, no one comes to us without a predestined fate, we are not talking about fatalism. Buddhism does not say we are trapped by our karma. Instead, it says, you are being offered a path, one that winds through sorrow and joy, through people who inspire and people who irritate, all leading not to a fixed destination, but to deeper awareness. The purpose of these karmic meetings is not to keep you asleep, tangled in attachment or aversion. Their purpose is to wake you up. Each person has played a role. Some have broken you, so you would find the pieces of yourself worth keeping. Some have loved you, so you would remember your own worth. Others have left, so you would learn how to stand alone, and in doing so, realize you were never truly alone. Even those who've harmed you may have unknowingly opened a Dharma gate. They may have cracked your heart just wide enough for compassion to seep in. And while this never excuses harm, it does reveal the truth. Every experience can become fuel for awakening, if met with mindfulness and courage. But transformation is not automatic. Karma ripens, but what happens next, your response, is your freedom. You can choose to stay in the cycle, clinging, resenting, repeating. Or you can choose to meet it differently, seeing clearly, loving fully, letting go. This is the alchemy of the path, turning karma into liberation. Let us look again at what this means through the heart of the Buddha's teachings. Awareness transforms reaction into response. When someone triggers you, the path begins when you pause, just for a breath. That pause is the birthplace of wisdom. Compassion transforms blame into understanding. When you see others not as enemies, but as fellow beings trapped in their own karma, your heart begins to soften. Letting go transforms pain into freedom. Holding on keeps the cycle alive. Releasing with love is not weakness, it is the ultimate act of strength. Presence transforms the ordinary into the sacred. When you meet each person as a reflection of the path, even daily life becomes a meditation, a miracle. This is how you shift from being a passenger of fate to a practitioner of freedom. Not by changing the people who come into your life, but by changing how you meet them. Not by resisting the story, but by living it with your eyes wide open.
The Zen master Dojin once said, "Enlightenment is intimacy with all things, not just with silence or sunsets or sacred texts, but with difficult people, with painful memories, with the raw texture of your life exactly as it is. This intimacy means saying yes to the mystery, yes to the unfinished stories, yes to the people who were never meant to stay, and yes to those who did. Because the goal is not to fix your life. The goal is not to get it all right. The goal is to wake up again and again until every moment is a Dharma bell. Until every face becomes the Buddha's. Until every meeting becomes sacred. Until even heartbreak becomes a form of grace. And so, when someone enters your life, whether for an hour or a decade, you no longer ask, how long will they stay? You ask, what are they here to show me? And when they go, as they must, you bow, not in sadness, not in regret, but in gratitude.
Thank you for your part in my story. Thank you for your presence, your teaching, your challenge. Thank you for helping me remember what I am. This is how we walk the awakened path, with open eyes, with an undefended heart, and with deep reverence for the truth that no one comes to us without a predestined fate, and no one leaves without leaving something behind. Thank you for listening with Buddhism Herefelt. No one comes to us by accident. Every person, whether they bring love or pain, is a mirror, a karmic connection that helps us awaken, let go, and grow. When we learn to view each encounter with compassion and wisdom, life is no longer a string of random events, but a sacred journey back to our true self. May you always dwell in mindfulness, love without attachment, and feel gratitude for all those who have crossed your path.